The forest was quiet, almost too quiet. The only sound was the crackle of a small campfire, its orange light flickering against the tall trees. The man sat close to the flames, rubbing his hands for warmth. He had been hiking for days, seeking peace, far away from the noise of the city. The night air was cold, but he didn't mind. There was something soothing about the darkness, about being alone with just the stars above, and the fire beside him. He had just finished eating a simple meal of bread and dried meat when he noticed movement at the edge of his campfire's light. At first he thought it was an animal, maybe a deer or a fox, but the figure that emerged was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was humanoid, yes, but not human. Her skin shimmered softly, like silver mixed with gold, changing colors with the movement of the firelight. Her eyes were enormous, golden and glowing faintly, holding a strange mix of fear and sadness. She moved carefully as if stepping lightly on the world, and yet there was a grace in every motion that no human could match. She stopped a few feet away from the fire and tilted her head, studying him. The man froze, unsure whether to speak or run. But something in her gaze told him she was not here to harm him. He stayed seated, holding his ground, and finally said softly, "You're not human." She flinched at his words, almost as if he had startled her, and then her lips curved into a small, hesitant smile. Her voice came out soft and musical, but strangely clear in his mind. I need shelter. Just for one night." The man blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. The voice sounded like music, yet the words made sense in his own language. Somehow he understood her perfectly. He looked at the fire, then at her, and then slowly nodded. "You can stay," he said. "No one should be out here alone in the cold like this." She approached the fire cautiously, her long, delicate fingers brushing against the grass as if she feared breaking something fragile. Her body trembled slightly from the cold, and the man quickly grabbed an extra blanket from his pack and offered it to her. She accepted it with a small, grateful nod, wrapping it around her shimmering shoulders. As she settled closer to the fire, the man studied her more carefully. She was small, almost delicate, but there was a strength hidden in the way she held herself. It was as if she had been trained, as if she carried the weight of 1,000 responsibilities on her shoulders. And perhaps she had. Something about her eyes told him stories of worlds he could never imagine, of power and loss, of fear and courage intertwined. After a while, she finally spoke again. "I am not safe. My people, my home, it is gone. I have nowhere to run." Her voice cracked slightly, and the man felt a pang in his chest. He had never met anyone like her, and yet he felt an instinct to protect her, to make sure she survived this night. He offered her some of his food, simple and plain, but she accepted with a quiet dignity. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I did not expect kindness, not in this place." The man shrugged. "Humans help when they can. That's what we do. You're safe here, at least tonight." She looked at him then, her golden eyes shining with a mixture of relief and disbelief. It was as if she had never known anyone could just offer help without expecting something in return. For a long while they sat in silence, listening to the forest. The fire crackled, the wind whispered through the trees, and for a moment it felt as if the world had paused. The man thought about how fragile life was, how easily it could be lost in a single mistake, and yet he also realized how strong it could be. How small acts of kindness could mean everything to someone who had lost everything. The night stretched on, but he did not leave her side. He watched as she finally relaxed, as the tension in her body softened. And somewhere deep inside he knew that this encounter was no accident. This alien princess, lost, scared, and extraordinary, had found him for a reason. And, as the fire burned low, casting long shadows across the forest floor, he understood something he had never thought about before. Sometimes, even the smallest human act could change the fate of someone else's entire world. The fire crackled quietly as the night deepened, wrapping the clearing in an orange glow. The alien woman sat closer to the flames, her blanket pulled tightly around her shimmering shoulders. The man watched her for a while, unsure how to start a conversation. He had already learned she was not human, but there was more to her story. He could feel it in the way her golden eyes avoided his gaze sometimes, in the tension she carried as if the weight of worlds rested on her small frame. Finally, she spoke. I am a princess, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The last of my family. She paused, her eyes glistening in the firelight. My empire, my home, it was taken from me. My people betrayed my family. I had to flee. The man's heart skipped a beat. A princess. He had never met royalty in his life, certainly not an alien one, and yet here she was, fragile, terrified, and trusting him enough to speak her truth. He swallowed, unsure how to respond, and simply nodded. That must be hard, he said softly. To lose everything like that. She let out a shuddering breath and lowered her gaze. Hard is not enough. They want me dead. My life is worth a bounty to those who seek power. They follow me across stars and planets, and there is nowhere safe. Nowhere that I can call home. Her voice broke, and he could see the fear hiding beneath her regal posture. She was strong, yes, but she was human, or at least vulnerable in ways that no armor could protect. The man handed her a small piece of bread, and she took it with both hands, eating slowly. You've survived on your own? He asked, curiosity and concern mixing in his tone. Yes, she replied, almost defiantly. I have learned to move, to hide, to stay alive. But it is exhausting. Every step I take, I fear betrayal. Every shadow could be my last. Her eyes met his again, shining with an intensity that made him catch his breath. And yet, here I am. I did not expect kindness from anyone, not even on a distant planet I have never seen. He shrugged lightly, a small smile touching his lips. Humans help when they can. Sometimes we survive because we care, not because we're strong. Maybe you just need someone who can stand with you, at least for a night. She studied him, her golden eyes softening slightly. For the first time, the tension in her shoulders eased. It is strange, she murmured, how you can offer warmth and safety without knowing me. And yet, it feels like more than I have known in a long time. The man nodded, understanding more than he expected. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind sweep through the forest, the distant sounds of wildlife punctuating the quiet night. She finally spoke again, her voice almost trembling. I cannot stay here forever. I am not meant to live like this. Hiding, running. My people, my enemies. They will find me. Then we'll make sure they don't, he said firmly, feeling a courage he hadn't known he possessed. Humans may not be the strongest creatures in the galaxy, but they had a stubbornness, a cleverness that few expected, and he would use every bit of it to keep her safe. Her lips curved into a faint smile, a mixture of hope and disbelief. You would risk yourself for me? She asked quietly. I don't think of it as risk, he said. It's just what I do. Humans fight for those who need protection. That's who we are. She reached out her hand tentatively, brushing her fingers against his. The contact was small, almost fragile, but it carried a weight neither of them fully understood. I thought the universe was cruel, she whispered. I thought no one would care. And yet, here you are, a stranger, and yet my shelter. The man looked into her golden eyes, seeing the fear, the pain, and the tiny flicker of hope that had not been extinguished despite everything she had endured. You're safe tonight, he said softly. And as long as I'm here, I'll do everything I can to keep you safe. That's a promise. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to truly relax. She leaned closer to the fire, her trembling fading as the warmth seeped into her body. Somewhere deep inside, Both of them knew that this was more than a chance encounter. This was the beginning of something neither could yet understand. A bond forged in firelight, trust, and the quiet strength of one human willing to stand for another being in a universe that had tried to destroy her. And as the stars twinkled above the forest canopy, it felt as though the night itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would come next. The night had grown colder, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. The man and the alien princess sat close to the fire, its warmth wrapping around them like a fragile shield against the darkness. The woman's golden eyes reflected the flames, a mix of fear and vigilance. She had been silent for a while, lost in thought, and the man could sense the tension in her every movement. Suddenly, a faint rustle came from the trees. He froze, straining to hear. Another sound followed, soft, deliberate, like someone moving through the underbrush with purpose. The princess stiffened instantly, her head snapping toward the noise, her body tensed, and a low, musical warning slipped from her lips. "They are close," she whispered. "They have found me." The man's heart pounded, but he remained calm. He could feel the danger, but he also knew something about fear. It could be faced, controlled, and used. He reached for the spear he had leaned against a nearby tree, gripping it firmly. "Then, let them come," he said quietly. "If they want to fight, they'll find more than they expect." Her eyes widened, a mixture of worry and disbelief. "You don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "They will destroy you. They will kill anyone who helps me. I cannot risk your life." He shook his head. "I'm already here. If they want to reach you, they'll have to go through me." She looked at him, her golden eyes searching, almost pleading. She had been running her entire life, avoiding death. Yet here was a human, a creature small, fragile, and ordinary, by comparison, standing fearless in the face of hunters from across galaxies. It was almost impossible for her to believe. The rustling grew louder. Shadows flickered among the trees as shapes moved closer, their forms dark and alien. The man could feel the tension building, a storm ready to break. He motioned for the princess to stay low by the fire. "Keep behind me. Stay silent. Watch and learn." For hours they sat in silence, listening to every crack of a branch, every whisper of the wind. The hunters circled the clearing, unaware of the tricks of a human mind. The man remembered paths he had known as a child, hidden hollows, and natural obstacles that could be used to confuse anyone who pursued him. He whispered instructions to the princess, teaching her how to move silently, how to use shadows, how to blend into the darkness. She watched, fascinated. "Your people, your kind, where you survive with cleverness, not strength," she murmured. "I have never seen such things. My soldiers, my guards, they would never think like this. They rely on power, not cunning." He smiled faintly, his eyes never leaving the edge of the forest. "That's why humans endure. We survive because we think. We adapt. We fight in ways that don't always make sense until it's too late for our enemies." Time passed slowly, measured in whispers of wind and the quiet tension of waiting. The hunters came closer, but they could not find the two of them. Every instinct, every human trick he knew, kept the princess safe. She began to feel something she had almost forgotten: hope. A fragile, dangerous hope, but hope nonetheless. Eventually, the rustling faded. The hunters had moved on, unable to locate them, leaving only the sounds of the night behind. The princess exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in hours. She looked at the man, her eyes glistening. You saved me," she said, voice trembling. "You risked everything for me." He shook his head. "It's what humans do. We protect, we fight, we survive. You just needed someone to stand with you." Tears welled in her golden eyes. "I thought I had to face the universe alone. I thought no one could understand, no one could help. And yet here you are, a human, small, ordinary, yet braver than anyone I've ever known." He gave a small, humble smile. Sometimes the small and ordinary surprise the universe the most. She reached out, her hand brushing his arm. For a moment, the fear melted, replaced by something warmer. Gratitude, trust, and the beginnings of something neither of them could yet name. The forest seemed to settle around them, the danger passing, leaving only the quiet crackle of the fire, and the bond formed in that crucible of fear and courage. That night, for the first time in countless days, the princess slept, peacefully trusting a human with her life, and the man watching over her understood something he had never known. Even in a universe full of threats, even against impossible odds, courage and heart could make all the difference. The morning sun spilled through the trees, painting the forest in golden light. The campfire had long burned out, leaving only embers that glowed faintly in the clearing. The alien princess stirred, stretching slightly, her shimmering skin catching the light. She sat up and looked at the man with a mix of curiosity and something softer: trust. The night had been long, filled with danger, yet she had survived, and it was because of him. He handed her a small bowl of water. "Drink," he said simply. "You need strength for what comes next." She took it, her fingers brushing against his briefly. "You have taught me something, though you may not know it," she said. "In my world, strength is power, command, fear. But last night I saw a different kind of strength. One that does not shout, one that does not strike. It survives. And protects." He smiled faintly. "That's humans. We're not always the strongest. We're not always the fastest, but we survive. We adapt. We find a way. That's our edge." She studied him carefully, as if trying to understand the essence of what he had said. "And you will share these tricks with me?" she asked, a glimmer of hope in her voice. "Of course," he replied. "If you want to survive, you have to learn more than power. You have to learn to move, to hide, to think in ways your enemies won't expect." For hours he taught her. He showed her how to move quietly through the underbrush, how to sense the path of someone following, how to use shadows and trees to hide. He demonstrated how to leave false tracks, confuse trackers, and make small noises carry farther or disappear entirely. She absorbed every lesson, amazed at the subtlety of his methods. In her empire, soldiers relied on numbers, technology, and intimidation. They never considered patience, observation, or small cunning. This is incredible," she whispered after successfully blending into the forest under his guidance. "All this time I relied on strength, and I thought that would be enough. But you survive without fighting, without firepower, without fear. How is this possible?" He shrugged modestly. "We humans have learned to survive in tough places, forests, deserts, mountains. We adapt. Sometimes brains are stronger than brawn. Cleverness can save more lives than weapons." Her golden eyes shone with admiration, and a faint smile tugged at her lips. "Perhaps that is why you are still here, and I am hunted. Perhaps I underestimated the power of the small, ordinary, and the brave." They spent the day moving through the forest, practicing, observing, learning. She became more confident with every step, every skill, every clever trick he taught, and he in turn watched her closely, marveling at how quickly she adapted. She had grace, instinct, and intelligence beyond what any human might possess, yet her humility and willingness to learn made her almost invincible in ways her enemies would never expect. By evening, they returned to the campfire. The princess settled close to the flames, her expression thoughtful. "I have traveled across galaxies, seen empires fall, and yet I never understood survival like this. Your kind, humans, you have a strength that no weapon can match. You are extraordinary." He shook his head, smiling softly. "I'm just a man trying to survive and help where I can. But maybe that's enough sometimes." She leaned closer, her eyes reflecting the firelight and something warmer, something unspoken. "It is more than enough," she whispered. "It has saved my life, and perhaps when it has saved more than that, it has given me hope. Something I had lost a long time ago." For the first time since she had fled her home, The princess allowed herself to feel safe. Not just protected, but empowered, capable, and alive. And the man realized that his own understanding of courage had grown. Humans survive not just for themselves, but for others. We endure, adapt, and fight for those who need us. That was a power greater than any army, stronger than any weapon. As night fell, the stars above mirrored the glow of the fire. The princess looked at him with gratitude and awe, her voice soft but steady. I will not forget this. I will remember what you have taught me. Humans, you are remarkable. And perhaps the universe underestimates you. He smiled, a quiet pride in his heart. Underestimating humans is everyone's mistake. And sometimes that mistake is the thing that saves the day. The fire crackled between them, the forest calm around them. For the first time, she felt she could face the future with more than fear. She could face it with hope, cunning, and the knowledge that even a small human could change the course of destiny. And somewhere deep in the quiet night, both of them understood that the real battle was not just against enemies, but against despair. And together, they were ready. The forest had grown quiet again, the sounds of the day fading into a soft night hum. The fire flickered, casting long shadows across the clearing. The alien princess sat close to the warmth, her golden eyes reflecting the flames. She had been silent for hours, lost in thought, and the man could feel the weight of her unspoken fears pressing against the calm of the night. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling slightly, as if the words had been locked away for a long time. I have seen worlds fall, she began softly. I have seen my people betrayed, my family destroyed, and my home burned. I have fled across galaxies, hiding from those who wish to end me. And yet, I have never felt safe. Not truly. The man listened in silence, offering no interruption. He had learned long ago that some stories needed only a patient ear, a presence, and nothing more. The night held them in a fragile bubble, a space where fear could be spoken aloud, and yet not consume them. I thought I could survive alone, she continued, her voice breaking slightly. I thought strength alone would keep me alive, but strength is not enough. I have been hunted, deceived, and betrayed so many times. I began to believe that no one could ever help me, that I must carry the world's weight alone. Her golden eyes glistened with unshed tears, reflecting the firelight like twin suns. He reached out, his hand hovering near hers, unsure if she would let him. You don't have to carry it alone, he said softly. Not tonight. Not ever. Humans survive, yes, but we also protect each other. That's how we endure. She looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time she saw him. Not just as a stranger, not just as a human, but as someone who had chosen to stand with her when no one else would. A strange warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't known in a long time. Trust. I don't know how to repay you, she whispered. I don't even know if repayment is possible. You have given me life when I thought it was gone. You have given me hope. The man shook his head. No repayment is needed. Humans help when they can, and sometimes that's enough. You're alive. That's enough for me. She swallowed hard, her trembling fingers brushing against the fire's warmth. It feels impossible, she said quietly. I am a princess of an empire, heir to power and responsibility. I have been trained to command, to fight, to survive in every way, but not like this. Not with someone simply standing by me, believing in me. He smiled faintly. Sometimes it's the simple things that matter the most. Strength is not just in weapons or armies. It's in courage, in trust, and in standing up for someone else even when the odds are impossible. She exhaled slowly, leaning back slightly, allowing herself to relax in a way she hadn't in months, perhaps years. The fear that had gripped her heart seemed to loosen, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of comfort. "I have never known this," she murmured. "I have never known someone who would care so deeply, without expecting anything in return. You are unlike anyone I have ever met." He reached out gently, letting his hand rest near hers. "It's not about being special," he said. "It's about choosing to do the right thing even when it's hard. Humans, we survive, yes, but we also help. That's what makes us strong." For the first time since fleeing her empire, she allowed herself to truly feel safe. Not just protected, but seen, understood, and cared for. She looked at him, her golden eyes glistening, and whispered, I think I can face what comes next. Not alone, but with you. You have given me something I thought I had lost forever. Courage, hope, trust." The man nodded, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. "You don't need to thank me. Just survive. That's enough. That's all that matters." They sat together in silence for a long time, listening to the forest around them, the fire crackling softly, and the distant rustle of the night creatures. In that quiet, the princess felt a bond forming, stronger than any army, deeper than any power she had known. For the first time, she believed that survival was not just about fleeing or hiding. It was about connection, about courage, and about the simple but profound act of standing together. And as the stars sparkled above, she realized something she had never allowed herself to feel. Maybe she could belong somewhere again. Maybe for the first time in a lifetime, she could hope. And beside her, the man watched quietly, knowing that sometimes even a small human could change the destiny of someone who seemed larger than the universe itself. The forest was calm, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun. Shadows stretched long across the ground, and the air carried the soft scent of pine and earth. The alien princess stood at the edge of the clearing, her golden eyes fixed on the horizon. She had spent days moving quietly through the woods, learning from the human beside her, growing stronger, more confident, and more aware of her own capabilities. Yet a storm of doubt and fear lingered in her heart. She turned to him, watching as he packed the few belongings they had carried, adjusting his pack with careful hands. He seemed ordinary in every way, a human, small, fragile, but to her, he was extraordinary. He had kept her alive, taught her, and given her hope when everything in the universe had turned against her. "I could leave," she said quietly, her voice almost lost in the rustle of leaves. "I could return to my empire, reclaim what was once mine. I have a duty, a throne, a people who still need me. But I don't want to leave this place. Not if it means leaving you." He looked up at her, surprise flickering across his face. "You mean, stay here? With me?" he asked softly, unsure if he had heard her correctly. She nodded, her shimmering form catching the last rays of sunlight. "Yes. I have survived alone for so long. I have been hunted, betrayed, and abandoned. But with you, I have learned something I never thought I would know again: safety, trust, even love, perhaps. I choose to stay here, with you, forever." The words hung in the air, fragile but powerful. The man felt his chest tighten, his heart beating faster than it had in years. Humans rarely encountered moments like this. Raw, honest, life-changing, but he understood immediately the weight of her decision. A princess, an alien heir to a faraway empire, choosing a simple human beside a campfire over power, over duty, over everything she had once known. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly, not wanting to break the fragile moment. "You are giving up so much. You could reclaim a throne, a kingdom. Why choose this life here with me?" She met his gaze, golden eyes unwavering, shimmering with a mix of vulnerability and strength. "Because you have shown me something no throne or army could ever give me. You have shown me courage, compassion, and the strength of heart. Here I am not hunted, here I am not alone, here I am myself. And I cannot imagine returning to a life where I am always afraid, always running. Not when I have found you." The man felt a warmth spread through him, a rare and profound feeling that went beyond pride or happiness. It was awe, wonder, and a quiet reverence for the choice she had made. He had saved her once, yes, but now she had chosen to stay, to trust him fully, and that trust was a gift far greater than anything he had imagined. He stepped closer, offering his hand. "Then stay," he said simply. "Stay, and we'll face whatever comes together, not as princess and human, not as hunted and protector, but as partners, as equals, as something stronger than any empire." Tears filled her eyes, glistening like liquid gold. She took his hand in hers, the touch electric and grounding all at once. "I will stay," she whispered. "Forever." The forest seemed to hold its breath, the wind stilling for a moment as if acknowledging the weight of the promise they had made. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. For the first time in countless days, the princess felt a sense of belonging, not just to a place but to a life, and to someone who had shown her that the universe was not only cruel, but capable of kindness and love. As the night fell and the campfire flickered to life once more, she sat beside him, close yet unafraid. They shared silence, warmth, and a quiet understanding that words could not fully capture. She had chosen her place not because of fear, not because of obligation, but because of trust, hope, and the unspoken bond that had formed between them. And in that moment, the human beside her understood something profound about his own kind. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated, but they had a stubborn courage, a capacity for compassion, and a will to protect others that no empire, no weapon, and no force in the galaxy could match. The alien princess, heir to worlds, had found her home, not on a throne, not in power, but beside a human who had shown her the extraordinary strength of ordinary hearts. And together they would face whatever the universe had in store, as equals, as partners, and as something unstoppable. The fire crackled softly, the stars shimmered, and the night held them in its embrace. She had made her choice, and it was one that would change both their lives forever. Part 7. Humanity. Fuck yeah. The night was calm, but the air carried a quiet tension. Somewhere beyond the trees the universe moved, danger, opportunity, and the unknown all waiting. Yet, beside the campfire, the alien princess sat close to the human who had saved her life, her golden eyes reflecting both the flames and the stars above. She had made her choice. She had chosen him, this ordinary human, over kingdoms, empires, and thrones. And in that choice, a quiet power began to bloom, one neither of them had expected. The fire crackled, its warmth reaching out to them both. She turned to him, her voice soft but steady. "I never thought I would feel this, safe, alive, and more than just a shadow fleeing the universe. You have given me something I never thought I would have again. You have given me hope." He shook his head with a humble smile. "You've given yourself the chance to feel it. I just helped you see it again." She studied him, her eyes glowing. "You are human, fragile, small. Yet, you survived when empires could not. You protected me when the galaxy tried to destroy me. How is this possible?" He laughed quietly, a sound that seemed to blend with the whisper of the wind through the trees. "That's humans. We're not always the strongest, but we're stubborn. We think, we endure, and sometimes that's enough to change the fate of worlds."